Hello, everybody. I'm George from Ireland Well. Thank you for coming back to my channel. So, do not allow China to move its embassy in the United Kingdom, the former Royal Mint. So, it's crystal clear, and it came out the other day in a submission to the government by His Noble Lordship Charlie Banner, King's Counsel. So, Lord Banner is the top planning barrister in England and Wales, probably the whole of the United Kingdom. Indeed, he was called to the bar of Northern Ireland almost 20 years ago. So the Chinese embassy currently is at Portland Place. They want to shift to just north of the Tower of London. I'm not quite sure why. So the Royal Mint, as in when they used to mint coins, and it hasn't been used for that purpose for over a century. And that would be the largest premises for any embassy in Europe. Goodness. So why would they want such an enormous Chinese embassy? Well, the United Kingdom is perhaps important to them in some ways. They already have a cordial relationship with Russia. I mean, China wears the trousers in that one. I'm looking at the thing of the United Nations. What's the word? Permanent Security Council members. France fairly important. I mean, maybe East London still bigger financial centres, more of a Chinese emigre community in the United Kingdom. United States, okay, it's fair, this pretty important. Well, obviously, the important, most powerful country in the world, and there's a bigger Chinese community in the United States there is in the UK. Obviously, the mostly Chinese Americans, but still. But perhaps the Americans are not so foolish and not going to be played by them and pushed around. There was a major Chinese espionage operations in the United States. The United Kingdom been exposed, people have been caught. Having said that, I mean, obviously, the United Kingdom's spying in China. Everybody spies on everybody. I don't blame them for that. All right. So there were the royal mints turned into flats ages ago, and so the people who are living there, they might be kicked out of their homes. Yeah, because there's a new landlord. The Chinese government has bought the property, but they won't necessarily be allowed to set up their embassy there. So Royal Mint Court, goodness. Now it's had its location on Portland Place since 1877. And remember, when the People's Republic of China was proclaimed in 1949, the United Kingdom was almost alone in the Western world in instantly recognizing the PRC. Most of the Occident carried on recognizing the Republic of China, that's now Taiwan, for at least a few years. The United States didn't recognize the People's Republic of China till the 70s. Anyway, so fortunately, the complete thicko, Angela Rayner, has gone as Secretary for Housing or Deputy Prime Minister, and she's the kind of person who was stupid enough to agree to this. Now, other people would agree to it not quite out of stupidity, out of greed or whatever, or malevolence. And apparently, she was going to have the final say in it, and be able to override Tower Hamlets Council because it's in the London Borough of Tower Hamlets. But anyway, this is why it's highly controversial. Is they've submitted their plan, and some of the plans have been so grayed out some of the rooms. Well, what are they going to be used for? And perhaps that's going to be the whatever, the secure communications room or the torture chamber or whatever, because obviously the Chinese regime tortures on an industrial scale. We know about the enslavement of the Uyghur ethnic minority. We know about genocide against Uyghur people sentenced to years in horrifically inhumane conditions just for traveling abroad, the oppression of that Muslim minority there. We know there's no such thing as a fair trial, there's no freedom of expression. Challenging state power is a crime. Wow. So it's all horrendous. Now, I'm not remotely xenophobic. No one should be mistreated for being Chinese. And the PRC's made major strides economically. That's true. And so long as you are willing to be a toady to the regime, you could have an all right life, especially if you're Han Chinese living also in major cities. But there's a lot who don't fall into those categories, who deviate from the very narrow path set out by this one party state. There are severe punishments for raising your voice. Anyway, so China has redacted all this. Now, Mrs. Rayner asked Cathay to tell her why they were not telling her what's going on in these rooms. As far as I know, they haven't. Would they turn it into little prisons? We know that China has what are they? Has set up unofficial police stations in London and other Western cities. So a lot of Chinese human rights activists have fled to the United Kingdom. Some of them from mainland China, some from Hong Kong, were very worried that they would be kidnapped there. They might be lured there on spurious purposes to do with some whatever paperwork about people getting married, about inheriting property, renewing their passport, and so forth, registering a birth, and then taken, seized, abducted, held prisoners there indefinitely. They could be murdered, disposed of. Think of Jamal Khashoggi in the Saudi Arabian embassy. Goodness. Um, so they're not saying what's going to be going on. This is the layout of this new embassy. Now, it's true that people for the Chinese government are saying, well, look at the United States Embassy in Nine Elms that only opened only a few years ago. They did not reveal what was going on in every single room. That's true. Now, it's partly the United Kingdom be less concerned because the United States is not a hostile state, has not set up illegal police stations in the UK, is not harassing American dissidents. There is free expression in the United States. There are fair elections in the United States, and so on. Is not carrying out genocide against a segment of its own population. Is not enslaving them, and is not engaged in much espionage against the UK. I say much, no doubt they're engaged in some. So that's why his noble lordship said that this definitely has implications for planning. So we have to see, well, is it going to be safe? Is it going to be structurally sound? How about escape in the case of fire and things like that? So therefore, we need to know what's going on. The whole building could collapse. People could die avoidably because they won't be able to get out. Anyway, so whatever promises that Beijing gives people, these are worthless because of diplomatic immunity. There's nothing can be done. Even they make a promise, they could break it, and then the United Kingdom would have no comeback on that. So Steve Reed is the new housing secretary, and he ought to be provided with unredacted plans. That's what Lord Banner has insisted upon. Otherwise, planning permission would be unlawful. Okay, so then China wants to say, we'll leave a bit of the embassy site open to the public. People can wander in and look at the remains of the Cistercian abbey that was closed down in the 1530s, and also to establish a Chinese heritage center. Anyway, the Foreign Office and the Home Office are a bit worried about this because there could be an incident there, a health incident, security incident. Protesters might say, "We're going to get in and protest and cause a hullabaloo," and with the emergency service, the police, they can't get in there because that's Chinese sovereign territory. Goodness. Um, and how would the Chinese be able to handle this situation with these excessive force? Certainly, even the mildest dissent is ruthlessly crushed in China. Anyway, so the Chinese said they will not put a security perimeter up there. Well, that's ridiculous. You can't go ahead. Even ambulances couldn't go in there because that's going into Chinese sovereign territory. So they haven't offered a decent solution. What on earth is to be done? Remember, there's a Vienna Convention going back to, I think, the 1820s about diplomatic immunity. And with the ambassador, all Chinese diplomats have that immunity from arrest, that status. Okay, so any promises given Beijing cannot be relied upon. They can renege on those with impunity because under domestic law and under international law, China could break these promises and no action could be taken against them. And that includes any conditions of planning permission which are granted. Um, so the decision is going to be made by the 21st of October, but we shall see. Okay, his Ministry of Housing, Communities and Local Government. That's what Steve Reed is in charge of. So his ministry said that they won't let us know what his thought processes are. Okay, so we'll make the final decision. Well, I mean, there's been no briefing, there've been no leaks against it. I'm awfully worried that they'll say yes to this, which is surely the wrong decision, which is injudicious at best. Is this stupidity or is this treason, as Pavel Milyukov said in 1916? So people have been very worried for a long time. It will allow China to tap into fiber optic cables, and they would therefore be able to steal, very important, time critical, market sensitive information going to banks, the stock exchange, insurance companies, all sorts of everything in the financial sector around there. So that would be very, very stupid. Why does the UK always score these own goals? How is the United Kingdom just like so purblind, selling vital assets to this hostile state? Well, anyway, thank you for watching my channel. Make sure you subscribe on Patreon. Donate PayPal, georgecallan7@gmail.com. Goodbye.